Welcome to another episode of Code Breakers, the podcast that empowers you to overcome life's challenges and tap into your full potential. I'm Sam, your host. Today, we have a thought-provoking episode in store for you as we explore the topics of mental fitness, trauma recovery, life, and leadership. We'll talk about the relationship between change psychology, leadership, and trauma in the context of organization development. These topics may sound like disparate pieces, but today we'll connect the dots to reveal their interconnectedness. So let's begin by acknowledging that change is an inherent part of life, whether it's personal change and growth, professional development, societal progress, or lately regression. Change is the only constant. If we understand and learn to accept this, then we can shift our mindset from frustration and resistance to adaptability, empowerment, and growth. First, let's dive into mental fitness, which I relate closely to self-leadership. It involves self-regulation, self-awareness, self-motivation, and I've shared a little bit about my background as a trauma survivor. Change was a constant, uncontrollable part of my life for such a long time. I learned through self-leadership tactics and many of the other concepts that we'll talk about today that my time, my energy, and my focus are best spent on the things that I can control. Someone who is mentally fit is more capable of guiding themselves through the challenges and opportunities that life presents. Someone who is mentally fit is better equipped to adapt and bounce back from setbacks, making them more effective in navigating change. They have good stress management habits. They are emotionally intelligent. They're able to recognize and manage their own emotions and the emotions of others. They are more adaptable and open to new ideas and approaches, a vital quality for both leaders and team members when responding to change and finding ways to thrive during transitionary periods. Working to improve your mental fitness can build resilience and increase your ability to cope with the stress and uncertainty that change can bring. Leaders who prioritize their mental fitness serve as role models for their teams. Their ability to maintain composure and resilience during change or during stressful times really encourages team members to do the same. And this contributes to a more positive and adaptable organizational culture. But mental fitness also contributes to creating a psychologically safe environment, which is something that we'll talk a little bit more about later. When people are mentally fit, they are more likely to communicate openly, express their concerns in a mature and professional manner, and seek support when needed. This fosters a culture of psychological safety that is essential for effective change management and human-centered leadership. As someone who has struggled with mental health, mental fitness is something I take very seriously. This is a person's mental well-being, their emotional resilience. It is our ability to manage stress, cope with challenges, and maintain a positive, adaptable mindset. And while I believe strongly that we need to own our healing and shift our mindset, I also want to emphasize the important role that good leadership and healthy workplace cultures can have on someone's ability to self-regulate and maintain their mental wellness, even in demanding environments, high-stress industries, or any other adversity that life can throw at you. Now, let's talk about a few key or commonly known theories and philosophies in the field of change psychology that may assist you in navigating change more effectively, whether that is personally, as an individual, navigating this world, or as a leader, also trying to help others navigate their way through it. while driving strong business results at the same time. This first one is an overarching theory that I think everyone can benefit from, whether you're assessing a decision for personal or professional goals. Systems theory can help you see the bigger picture, anticipate potential consequences, and navigate various complexities. Change psychology often draws from this theory because it views organizations or communities and individuals as part of a larger system. So, changes in one part of the system can have ripple effects throughout the rest of the system. And taking the time to assess and understand this interconnectedness is crucial for managing change, as well as mitigating risk and reducing the likelihood for unintended consequences by having a thorough understanding of your upstream and your downstream impacts of the change that's being implemented. For example, when making a personal career decision, applying systems theory can help you consider not only the immediate impacts on your job and your finances, but also how this may affect your work life balance, your family, your long term well being, or your long term career goals. Or if you're implementing changes in your organization's supply chain, systems theory encourages you to consider how those alterations in one area may affect the entire production process or your overall customer satisfaction. Now, if you're interested in learning more about implementing change in an organization, I recommend diving into Cotter's 8-step change model, which outlines 8 steps for successfully implementing change in organizations, from creating a sense of urgency, forming a guiding coalition, developing a vision and strategy, to anchoring those changes into the culture. Another great one is Kurt Lewin's change model. This is more commonly known as the unfreeze, change, refreeze approach. It is one of the foundational theories of change psychology and emphasizes the need to first unfreeze the current state or create awareness of the need for change in the first place, then make the desired change, and then finally reinforce and stabilize the new state. Next, the ABCAR model. This acronym stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And it helps leaders understand the stages of individual change and where people are at in the process of acceptance and implementation. This framework outlines the key milestones and psychological states that people go through when undergoing change, from becoming aware of the change to developing the desire for it to acquiring the knowledge and the skills, and then finally receiving reinforcement and support to sustain the change. I want to spend more time talking about some elements of change psychology that focus on individual responses today. Why? Well, because I'm fascinated with the interconnectedness of personal and professional life, and I believe continuing to pretend that the two don't considerably affect one another is naive and it lacks foresight. We were all children at one point, right? I don't believe anyone had a perfect childhood or skated through middle school unscathed. And I don't think anyone has gone their whole life without a little bit of pain and hurt along the way. So, what does this have to do with change psychology and leadership? Well, I have a theory that people's perceived resistance to change goes beyond the organizational intricacies that we focus on and talk about so much today. And it may actually have more to do with their attachment styles, their past traumas, and trauma recovery or resolution or lack thereof. And I believe that a leader or an executive team's approach to instituting change has a massive impact on how people respond and whether or not they are driven into a state of resistance or whether they possess the self-awareness, the depth of knowledge about the proposed changes, and the trust in the vision and competence of their leadership team, all of which collectively determine whether people will react with resistance or respond thoughtfully and constructively when faced with change. A couple of other interesting concepts: the trans theoretical model, which identifies various stages individuals go through when making changes in their lives, including pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then termination. This framework really just emphasizes that people typically don't leap straight into change. That can be dysregulating. Instead, they progress through these stages, contemplating and preparing before taking action. But again, this model highlights the importance of acknowledging the time people need to gather information, evaluate options, and build the necessary motivation and skills before fully committing to and effectively implementing change, whether that's personal or professional. Another one is appreciative inquiry. This encourages a positive, strengths-based approach to managing change. The focus in this approach is on identifying and building upon an organization or an individual's existing strengths and success to drive change. This is also an effective way to approach posing thoughtful questions to better understand someone else's perspective and point of view. So while it's interesting to think about this approach to leadership and change management and how that might alleviate emotions like fear and apprehension, which tend to reduce change acceptance, honestly, learning about and applying appreciative inquiry to your conversations and interactions can lead to massive shifts in every single relationship that you have. Next, we have the social cognitive theory. This one resonates so deeply with me as it emphasizes the role of self-efficacy, self-regulation, and observational learning in the process of personal change. So this suggests that people can learn and change by just observing the behaviors and experiences of other people. And last but not least, cognitive behavioral theories that focus on how thoughts, beliefs, and emotions influence behavior. Change, especially personal change, often involves identifying and modifying negative thought patterns to achieve our desired outcome. So if we experience resistance ourselves or from members of our team in an organizational context, it's worth pausing to ask ourselves, is this coming from a lack of awareness, knowledge, safety, and where do these negative thought patterns come from? What can we as individuals do with this information? And what can or should leaders do with the information as well? Here's my point. Trauma, both personal and collective, can have a profound impact on our lives and the organizations we work in. Trauma can be a significant force behind change, sometimes sparking transformation, but it can also be a barrier causing resistance and unrest. Traumatic experiences can leave lasting emotional wounds that affect a person's thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, and whether resolved or unresolved, there's no denying that our life's experiences shape who we are and our choices will shape who we become. As our experiences influence our thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs, this can create resistance to change because people consciously or subconsciously fear that the change will reduce their safety in some way, whether it be basic needs like food and shelter, safety, belonging, etc. If a change is perceived as a threat to these fundamental needs, you will see more resistance as people strive to protect their well-being. So, understanding these underlying fears and providing a supportive, safe environment becomes crucial to managing change effectively. When we as leaders go to introduce change or a proposal for change and don't get the expected response we were hoping for, consider that there are a lot of people walking around with unresolved, repressed trauma and feelings. Understand that trauma responses often involve the body's fight, flight, or freeze response. So when people encounter threats, especially significant or unexpected changes, any one or several of these responses may be triggered. This can manifest as resistance, defensiveness, anger, withdrawal, or even shutdown in response to the perceived threat of change. People who have experienced trauma may have developed both positive and negative coping mechanisms. While some of these can support resilience and adaptability in the face of change, others can hinder the change process. Understanding an individual's coping mechanisms or being able to recognize the signs of resistance and hesitation in a different light through a different lens is crucial to facilitating change and doing so in a way that minimizes harmful impacts on people, teams, and organizations. Poorly managed change initiatives, especially those that lack sensitivity to the human being and the body's response to stress and perceived threats, can unintentionally re traumatize. For example, sudden layoffs without adequate support can trigger past trauma related to job loss or insecurity. And you should remember that this is tied to people's livelihood, the most basic needs of Maslow's hierarchy. Additionally, know that the people who were laid off are not the only ones affected by this. The people who remain on the team will absolutely have their own fears, their own coping mechanisms, and responses to this perceived threat, while also paying attention to how their leadership responds, the organization's communication or lack thereof, and their perceived safety within this system moving forward. I believe in the future, the most effective leaders and change leaders will be trauma informed. They will accept that people are likely to have experienced some level of trauma at some point in their life. And as such, they will have an understanding of what trauma responses are, and they will focus on creating safe, supportive, and empathetic environments. Always, but especially during the change process to alleviate emotional distress and ensure psychological well being. Now, let's tie this to the world of leadership. Servant leadership emphasizes selflessness, empathy, and service to others, and becomes particularly relevant here. The concept of impermanence teaches us that everything is in a state of flux, and understanding this fundamental truth can significantly impact how we approach change in our personal lives. A leader who understands the impermanence of life and embraces it can lead with compassion and foster an environment where people can navigate change with greater resilience and grace because they are so well supported. But this begs the question, where does this resilience come from? A servant leader prioritizes the well being and development of their team members. This leads to transparency, trust, and stronger team cohesion. Servant leaders also have a very deep understanding of their team members' needs and their emotions, so they can empathize with the challenges and anxieties that people may have during times of change, especially when dealing with uncertainty or change fatigue. Servant leaders provide support and consistently act in the best interest of their team. This can include offering resources, counseling, or simply a compassionate ear for individuals to express their concerns and their fears. Transformational leadership can also help us navigate personal and professional change eloquently. A leader who embodies the principles of transformational leadership encourages personal growth, they foster trust, they empower individuals to heal from their past trauma or things that are affecting their day to day life, ultimately contributing to positive personal growth and organizational outcomes. Transformational leaders inspire people to excel by providing support and recognition. They encourage innovation and promote resilience and adaptability. And in the context of organizational change, this approach can drive increased employee engagement, higher morale, improved team cohesion, all of which are essential and extremely beneficial during times of change. By embracing the principles of transformational leadership, organizations can harness the collective potential of their teams, Fostering a culture where change is viewed as an opportunity for positive transformation rather than a threat or a moment of fear and concern. This approach can lead to more effective change management, increased organizational resilience, and ultimately greater success and achievement of the organization's objectives. But what this all really boils down to is something of profound importance for any leader, and that is psychological safety. Servant leaders naturally create an environment of psychological safety. By demonstrating a commitment to the well being of their team members, they encourage open communication, honesty, and trust, all of which are essential for safety and managing change effectively. What is psychological safety? This refers to an environment where people feel safe to take risks, express their opinions, and be themselves without fear of reprisal or negative consequences. In the context of change leadership, psychological safety is crucial because it fosters open communication, very critical, honesty, and vulnerability, all of which are essential for addressing and managing the emotional aspects of change leadership. This includes any potential trauma related responses that come up from your team or team members along the way. Now, the cool thing I think is that to better manage your own responses to change, you can apply each of these concepts to your personal life, improving both your life and your leadership capabilities. When facing change, take a mindful approach to understanding and managing your responses first. This involves observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment and responding with intention rather than reacting impulsively or quickly or right away. Recognize that change can be a journey with both challenges and opportunities. Adapt and flow with the changes rather than resisting them. Create an environment of psychological safety for yourself. Take time to acknowledge your own thoughts and feelings without judgment and allow yourself to express your concerns about the uncertainties or the concerns that you have with the change or the change process, and reach out to trusted friends, family members, or even colleagues who can provide that space for you to share your emotions and your concerns without fear of criticism or rejection. Be kind and compassionate to yourself during times of change. Acknowledge your own vulnerabilities and practice self compassion. Treat yourself with the same care and empathy that you would offer to a friend. And prioritize self care during these times, especially activities that promote relaxation, emotional well being, and physical health to make sure that you can better cope with stress and the uncertainty that can come along with change. Develop resilience by building on your strengths and reflecting on things you've done well or things that you have learned from past experiences. And understand that resilience is a skill that can be cultivated and you can call upon it when needed. It can also help you better manage your responses to change overall. Apply the principles of servant leadership and transformational leadership to your self leadership. Practice empathy, selflessness, a commitment to your own well being and personal growth. Set a clear and inspiring personal vision for navigating the change that you're going through or struggling with. And foster resilience by embracing challenges as opportunities for growth. And then serve your own best interests by setting clear goals and intentions for the changes you want to make. Oftentimes, we can regain our power in uncontrollable situations by finding and focusing on what we can control. So, focus on your self development and self improvement and seek support and resources that align with your personal growth objectives. Incorporating these principles into your self leadership journey can empower you to not only navigate change effectively, but also to transform and evolve in ways that reflect your true potential, guiding you towards a much more aligned and fulfilling life. So we see that these seemingly distinct elements, organizational change, servant and transformational leadership, and living an undivided life, all play essential roles in understanding how trauma, change, and organization development intertwine. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought on today's discussion. As leaders, we have the power to shape the culture and the narrative of change within our organizations. But we have an even greater responsibility to understand the weight of our decisions and our approaches on the well being of our team members. By embracing the impermanence of life, showing empathy and acts of service, acknowledging and healing from trauma of our own, and leading authentically, we can create environments where change is not feared, but welcomed as a catalyst for growth. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into change psychology and leadership. I hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Remember, you can find more episodes of Codebreakers on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with friends and colleagues who you think may find value in these discussions. Until next time, remember, you have the power to break your own code and rewrite your story. Thank you so much for joining today. I'll see you next time.